Going on, everybody? We are back from another episode of the ABJ Podcast, episode 105. I'm really excited for this one. I've said before, we will slowly work in the entire team, and we're at number 2. Athan Promise will be on the podcast of the Lost Boys. Super excited for this one. We've had Junie on. Now we're going to have him on, his tag team partner, tag team former champions, current champions. I'm not sure where they're holding or how they're going. For full disclosure, this is being recorded once again in October of 2023. So some things that we talk about, maybe you're like, I don't get this. Why is this? It sounds out of date. That's why what's going on. I'm stockpiling episodes. So most of the stuff you're hearing is not current, not active. So if you want to support the podcast, make sure you check the links below. All ways you can do it. There's t-shirts and merchandise pages. I am on Brainbusters. I'm on Pro Wrestling Tees. But if you want the full collection of over 200 logos and different merch styles, head over to my TeePublic. There is a ton over there. If you like movies and music and horror movies and pro wrestling spoofs, I got them all. Also in my link tree are links for logos by Hunter and Witchcraft by Lily, as well as Haley Stokes and a bunch of other people like the Converse Kid. Have you heard from the music of the podcast and people who have made logos for me, who have been supporting me on this journey? So make sure you go support them as well as my links to all my guest stuff. So make sure you go and support them on all social media for every episode that you hear. Comment on their most latest picture and say, hey, just listen to the ABJ podcast. You had a great time. Engage in those conversations and use the power of social media for good, of saying, hey, if you want to see them work, seek them out on YouTube or wherever they're performing at, but also tell your local promotion, hey, you should reach out to these people and book them and help these independent people get their opportunities and get their shots so they can work in a town near you. That all being said, thank you all so much. This journey has been absolutely incredible. At 105 episodes in, and there's no slowing down, no stopping. We have a lot of cool content coming up in the future. So stick around on this journey. Hit those like and subscribe buttons if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening to an audio platform, take a screenshot of you listening to it, tag me on social media, or use the hashtag #ILoveABJ, and I will see that. And just say, hey, listen to the episode. Here's what I thought about it. And feedback is always great. I'm always want to learn how I can get better, or things you enjoy about it, or if there's a question I missed, maybe when we have him back on in the future, or any guest, that question will be used. So without further ado, let me bring in my guest here, Athan Promise. What's going on, buddy?
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. By the way, just before we went live, I seen the T-shirt. I think I actually wore that shirt during a future past episode. So we have the same style. I like that.
There you go. I had said, hey, I'm going to be on the ABJ today. I need to wear my Shawn Michaels shirt. I mean,
that's a good.
I know how big of a fan you are, so I was like,
yeah, love me some HBK.
Yes,
yeah,
me too. That's why Backbreak Kid. That's actually like,
yeah,
that's why. HBK is awesome. We can talk more about him, but
yeah, I'm sure we'll dive into that in a minute. So let the people know right off the jump who you are, what you do, and how long you've been doing it.
Awesome, thank you. My name is Athan Promise, nicknamed the Backbreak Kid. I am 1/4 of the faction of the Lost Boys, 1/2 of the tag team, the Lost Boys, with Junie Underwood, Miles Penn, and Ryan Rise. We are a faction of young boys coming out of the Northeast area. So we're based out of PA, New Jersey, but we also wrestle a lot in New York, North Carolina, Vermont, everywhere and anywhere. Anywhere we wake up, that's kind of our stick. Wherever we wake up is where we wrestle. We're lost, we travel, and I'm so excited to be here today.
Yeah. Now, how important is to you right off the bat? We'll stick with the Lost Boys. Is it to have a group of people like that, not only as wrestling family, but like, hey, we're gonna kind of stick together and make this a group. Like, it's not just, hey, we're a car full of people that are gonna show up at your promotion, but use this in a storyline. We're 4 people who you can use interchangeably. Like, you want to have us work against each other. Like, but we want to put over the fact that we are this stable of people. It's almost like behind the scenes of the Clique. The people didn't know the Clique was a thing until later on, and then the Clique became the NWO. It became DX, and it was behind the scenes. It was a group of people who traveled together, and then that kind of became a thing with like stables. But you guys are not just a stable, you're a group of people who, traveling together, you're in car rides together. How important is that for you guys?
I think the camaraderie in wrestling is one of the most important things. There's people that have your back and will always like kind of vouch for you, but then there's people that will like go to battle for you. So there's different stages of like relationships, right? Different levels of relationships. And I think to have those types of relationships where it's like a true brotherhood, especially so early on with a group of very talented like individuals, I think it's incredible. And Miles and I have been friends for a long time now. We met in middle school actually. So Miles and I have went to the same middle school, same high school. We came up together, and then we started training, and we were brand new. Junie and Ryan had literally just started. They were brand new, so we all came in at the exact same time. We're all around the same age. Junie's a little older, and then Ryan's in between us. But like, we're all just young kids who love wrestling, love the storytelling, love every aspect of it, and we just relate so much to each other. But having those car rides, well, one, it's cost efficient. I mean, you get to split the gas, you get to split up the driving and whatnot. Ryan doesn't have his license yet, so I'm going to put him on full blast for that.
Or
Ryan,
social media at all. Like, you can't find this
Yeah,
guy.
and you're right. He has a Twitter.
He is a lost
he
boy.
never
You cannot
posts
find
on.
him.
Yeah,
I don't know how I'm going to
we've
book
been
him on this
trying to get
podcast.
him.
I got to send a pigeon to his house.
We've been telling him. We've been like, hey, we're all gonna go on ABJ, and he's like, yeah, maybe. He's like, I love Anthony, but he likes that mysterious. Like, he likes that mysterious. We'll get him on here. But yeah, we've been telling him forever now.
He
You
might
gotta
be
make
tied
an
to a chair,
Instagram.
but we'll get it happen.
Right, we will. But no, Ryan, he's a blessing. He's just so funny, so smart. He always makes all of us laugh. Chris he's the youngest of us. By him and I are both 20 years old, just a couple months apart. But he's kind of like the kid of the group. He kind of like is that young, spirited, kind of just wants to live life. And then Junie's like he refers to himself. He's like the bigger brother, so he's the one that it's always his car, it's always his. He kind of like coordinates the plans and whatnot. And so it's a good group. It's a really good group. And to have those people really to go to bat for you, and to kind of like, we all come up with ideas together. We all talk about our frustrations together. So it's like people that you can vent to. It's people that you can collaborate with, come up with new ideas with. Like, four minds are greater than one, no matter how no matter what way you splice it. Four minds are greater than one, and especially when we're all so talented and young and just like smart of the business. And then also, we love kind of pitching ourselves to promoters. Like, we're so versatile in that, Junie and I are a tag team, Ryan and Miles are a tag team, but then like Miles and I can team up, Junie and Ryan can team up. We can do a trios match, we can do singles matches, we can fight against each other, we can whatever if you want, singles, tag, trios, a 4-man group, we have it all. So we've actually, like, most of the time when we're not teaming together, we may end up actually facing each other. So
yeah,
it's a great way to get
that's kind of how I seen you. You guys were part of
right.
the Fight-tacular at Deppin's Brewery, and you guys kind of all worked against each other. And I honestly, like, I remember talking to everybody afterwards. I was like, boy, like, that Lost Boys team, like, they're young, but they all came in tonight and they put in work. Like, I maybe causing some deception here, but if I remember correctly, you in the first show, you and Speedball had a match, that one.
Yes.
And I said, like, that stole the show. That was match of the night. I think I even came up to you that night and I was like, you just had match of the night, brother. Like, that was very impressive. And then not too far behind you was Junie. Like, Junie had a banger that night at the same time. Like, it was like you guys were the, like, in a match where, Deppin, like, where Janela and Jimmy Lloyd and Speedball and all those big names are there. Like, you guys really rose to the occasion, and you really showed that, like, even young in this business, there's a lot of potential there.
Thank you. I mean, we learned partially from the best. I mean, we have a crazy network of coaches and mentors, which is something that I'm, like, very grateful for. Like, we're very blessed.
Yeah,
in that way.
You stepped in it, brother. When it comes to who you've been trained by, this list, like, if you don't mind, so cage match, I use this a lot. Maybe you can tell me how accurate or inaccurate this is, but
okay.
Like, your list of trainees. Now, if you want to talk about the Mount Rushmore of who I'd want to be trained by, Mike Bailey, Orange Cassidy, Sonny Defarge, and cheeseburger. Like
Yeah,
check.
right.
You know what I mean? Like
No, right, and so many more too. Like, it's right. I mean, those are some of the top guys in the industry. So I mean, that's pretty cool. But just so many more too. So like, when Junie and I had the opportunity to face Speedball at those shows at the Fightertainment Spectacles with Tony Deppen, we were like, we were kind of very grateful for that. But also, he wanted to face his kids. Like, he wanted to face the people that he kind of brought up. So he was like, I'll face both of you in the same night, because we did a tournament style bracket. And we both just had a lot of fun. And we both can't wait to run it back with him in an actual ring, because it's one thing to do it in like on a mat, which was still very fun. I think we pulled it off as best as we could.
it was great.
But to do it in the ring is like a totally different story.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, started out at the Wrestle Factory with Sonny Defarge. It was the old Chikara. And then we went to the Worldwide Dojo with Cheeseburger, with Preacher. And then Speedball independently here and there. And then, yeah, sometimes with people like Orange Cassidy. And now Wheeler Yuta and Drew Gulak and Tracy Williams.
Dude, that school,
if Catch Point, that's an awesome school.
If you don't know about Catch Point yet, especially like I said, you have the Worldwide Dojo and you have Catch Point right there in like Philly or the outskirts of Philly.
Right.
It's wow.
It is the hub. It is the hub.
And then if you take a little bit of a drive further down to Lancaster, you got Ricardo Rodriguez. Like Pennsylvania is just a banger state right now if you want to learn professional wrestling.
Yes, I agree. And same thing, like Pennsylvania and New Jersey as well. The Monster Factory,
Monster Factory, H2O.
We haven't trained there, but we've been there a lot. H2O.
Creator Wrestler is Jersey and Creator Pro is New York, right?
Wrestle Pro is Jersey, and then Creative Pro is New York. But also New York is House of Glory. There's just so many. Like in this 3-hour hub, it's just probably like just some of the best places you can go for professional wrestling training. It
also comes down to is like, if you're willing to put the miles on your car, there's no reason why you can't take a 3 to 4 hour drive between New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, or even Massachusetts or Connecticut and get good at this industry.
Beyond Wrestling School and all of their affiliates. It's all Maryland Championship Wrestling. Yeah, right there. It's the Northeast, man. I mean,
I'm probably missing stuff in Delaware. You know what I mean? I'm like, you know what I mean? It's everywhere. There's the Northeast area, like you're saying. Yeah, everyone you watch on TV right now, like, is all from essentially Northeast wrestling. Like, there's some West Coast and some Florida and some stuff like that, but like 90% of what you're watching, especially on the AEW side, all got their chops in the Northeast area.
Yeah, it's awesome. And like Worldwide Dojo, Wrestle Factory, very grateful for. Catch Point, I plan on going there a lot too going forward. Drew and Wheeler Yuta are just two very smart, very caring individuals, and just again, like, that network of people to learn under is just it is truly a blessing. I think that's a large part of the reason the Lost Boys, we're like a very unique group in that, like, we're the only ones that have kind of trained under all of these places. Like, it's a very like small kind of group with that. It's us, Harleen Lopez, Journey Burke, and just like a couple of others. But like, yeah, I know it's so that's why we were all taught very well. That's how I'll put it.
Yeah, there's what's his name? I just seen Ben the Bean. He's from Catch Point. He literally wrestles like your photo here. He literally showed up in the young boy gear, black knee pads, black trunks, very, very new. And he came to the Sanctuary the other night. He killed it. There was a guy, I'm trying to remember his name too, that just came to the Sanctuary from Catch Point. He was super impressive. So like there's a lot of young talent that are coming out of there. Is it Tom LaRosa? He's a Catch Point kid? I feel like that was Tom LaRosa.
I'm not sure. Tom, maybe, yeah. Ben definitely rings a bell. I feel like Tom also rings a bell, yeah.
Just seen another kid too.
That's awesome.
He literally visually looks like he should be a Lost Boy. So if you guys recruit him, he has my stamp of approval. He goes by Just Jay. He's a Three Legacies kid.
Oh my gosh, I love Jay.
Yeah,
Jay's awesome.
Jay should be a Lost. He looks like a Lost Lost Boy. Like he looks like he would like visually look at the part of a Lost Boy.
Right. Yeah. Right. That is true. That is true. He's doing his own thing right now, and he's fantastic. He has a really bright future. Like,
yeah,
I told him at the past 3 Legacies show, I told him, I said, hey, like, I want to wrestle you. Like, let's get that going. You know, I want to wrestle
all I'm
you.
saying is the church every first Friday. Come out. I want to see that match. I don't really tell people to come there. I just want to call it. I want to be on commentary for it. I'm trying to make it so if people think I'm good enough at commentary, that if they want to be called by a match by me, which means absolutely nothing, they got to come to the sanctuary. You know what I mean? Like making that exclusive, right. I guess, right?
There you go.
Which means who the hell am I? Anyway, but just being selfish, I guess I just want to call those matches.
No. You know your brand. You know how to draw. He's like, hey, come to the sanctuary if you want to be commentated by me. I love it.
Yeah. So so one of the things that I kind of been pitching and saying that like I want to happen in the worst way, I kind of said it on the Griffin McCoy episode as you know, when you think stables, obviously you think of a 4-man stable, Young, Dumb, and Broke, right? They're and then you guys are kind of that next one kind of coming up, and I was like, we need that 4-on-4 just fight around the bar at Fightertainment, like Lost Boys versus Young, Dumb, and Broke at the bar.
You are not the only one to say that to us. That there have been many people that have actually said that, and that's something that Junie and I and the other ones definitely want. We were talking to Griffin and Jordan, who's been so instrumental in the development of Junie and like so like gracious. He's like, I'm so gracious for him, and he's just so humble and respectful, and just always gives like a helping hand when you need it, and always gives good advice when you need it. But Jordan's awesome, Griffin's awesome, and then the first time I ever met both Charlie and Ellis were both at the Fightertainment show. But Charlie's the man too. Ellis is awesome, so it's like that needs to happen. We've been trying to tell Speedball, like, hey, a 4-on-4 on a mat may seem a little crazy, but we can make it work. And it needs to happen.
You're going to need a lot of roving cams, because I feel like you just that has to just fight. It has to go everywhere. Like get 4 cell phones, just record as you're going and send all the footage and then splice it together. It's got to be like a Stadium Stampede style, but in this little tiny bar.
Maybe we can go out into the street, go in the back.
Oh my God, it'd be sick. But yeah, and then it has to happen obviously in a ring like that. That's just a matchup that I think is going to be a lot of fun to watch as the years progress. But I'm going to ask you early on the same question I asked Griffin McCoy, and I think it's simple for your team, but I want to see if you get it right. Like, you would know better than me. Who am I? But so I love the Ninja Turtles, right? Yeah, that's another 4-man team. Who is what turtle in the Lost Boys?
That's very easy. Junie is Raphael.
Really?
He's red.
Oh, he's okay. I wouldn't have went there.
Oh no, absolutely. He has a mean streak to him. He definitely has a hot streak. He's the fire starter. I mean, he's a hothead, right? So he's red. I'm blue. I'm kind of like the moral, like I have very like high morals and very like high ethics and standards for myself. I kind of keep us all straight headed and whatnot. Like, so I kind of like have that Leonardo kind of character. And then the last 2 have been very hotly debated, but
I think the last one's super easy.
As funny as Ryan is, he's Donatello. And Chris Miles is Michelangelo.
See, I would have said Miles is Raphael. 100% Raphael.
Okay.
I would have said Ryan's Mikey.
Why did you say that?
I just feel like he's like the brute of the group. Like he's like the bigger guy. He's like every time I've ever seen him, he's ever played heel, and he's always angry, and he has that mean streak to him, like as a character, right? So he reminds me of Raph. But he's someone who can kind of conflict for that leadership role. I would have had you as Donatello, because I feel like you're the intelligent, because Donnie also has the leadership role too, where, I mean, every turtle has the leadership qualities, right?
They all do,
but Donnie is like also like the smarts, like, all right, guys, we have to, like, I feel like you're the guy who's like, we have to be here on time. This is how things have to go. Like, keeping it, like, Junie is the older, so I feel like he would be the Leo, and then Ryan's Michelangelo. That's how I would put it together. We went 2 completely different directions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Ryan is one of the smartest people I've ever met. So
Yeah.
I would give him the nod. Like he's very goofy in the ring, but behind he's a law student at UPenn at
Yeah.
University of Pennsylvania. Like he's a very intelligent individual, and I think that's part of why he's so witty and smart, like and so funny in the ring. He just knows.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I
Well,
say he's Jonathan.
Mikey's the born leader, but he comes off as he doesn't take it as seriously, so that's why he wasn't given the position. And he's also regarded
Right.
as being the best turtle. Yeah.
All right, there you go. Hey, you can go any type of way. Maybe we have to rearrange our colors a little bit.
So if you need legal advice, who are you going to? You going to the Esquire? Or you going to Ryan?
So Ryan's
I'll put you in the hot seat here.
Law school. Journey is actually currently practicing, so I would go to Journey Burke currently. However, once Ryan is an actual lawyer, because once he graduates law school and he actually has that, then probably him, just because he's a little closer.
Yeah, it's gonna be it's definitely a benefit to have two legal representations in your group. Like,
definitely. I mean, hey, with the Lost Boys, if we ever need, if we ever get into some trouble, we have two people to call.
Yeah, absolutely. She's honorary lost. She's a lost girl. She's definitely part of the team.
Right. She's definitely the honorary lost girl. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. She's the April O'Neil. She's the.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Or Casey Jones.
Right.
Because Casey Jones is like April fights and the stuff, but Casey Jones is the badass. I feel like she's like more of a Casey Jones. Anyway. And Harley Lopez is Shredder. She's the master villain. Yeah.
There you go.
Fun stuff. So growing up, you were an athlete, you said. You're very into sports. What all did you play?
Growing up, I really played like almost everything. It was more so when I got to high school, that's when I settled on specific sports. But like when I was little, it was football, it was baseball. But then I kind of, as I got into middle school and we started doing like the mile in middle school, like finding out that I was good at long distance running, I transitioned to track and ran long distance for track. And that was also to work on my stamina for wrestling, because I was also an amateur wrestler. And then all of that was for wrestling though. Like all my life, I knew I was going to be a professional wrestler. I knew that's what I wanted to be. I was laser focused. You could ask me when I was 5 years old, I'd say I'm going to be a WWE superstar one day. You could ask me when I'm 10 years old, I'm going to be a wrestler one day. You can ask me when I'm 15 years old, I'm like, I'm going to be a New Japan wrestler. Like just the evolution, but it's always been wrestling. And everything that I've done in my life has always been for wrestling, straight up. If something doesn't benefit wrestling, it's kind of on the back burner, so track, running, long distance, I knew I needed to work on my endurance, my stamina. Amateur wrestling, I knew that's where I would get the basic techniques down. And then football was kind of like strength training, and just all of that was for wrestling. And then in addition to that, I did theater at the same time. In high school, I did theater, I did acting classes, I did broadcasting classes. All of that was for wrestling.
That's so crazy. You were literally putting all the pieces in. You're like, I'm going to be the most well-rounded person.
Right. No, as much as you're only as good as you prepare, and you only get out of it as much as you put in. And I've been putting in my entire life so far, so hopefully I get some nice things out of it. But it's so fulfilling though. It's I love amateur. Like I fell in love with amateur wrestling. I did it for pro wrestling, but I fell in love with it as its own sport. Like theater, I did it for pro wrestling, for the performance element, but I fell in love with it as its own art. And that was actually in high school. Miles did the same thing. I kind of, in 7th grade, I was alone wrestling, but then in 8th grade, I kind of nudged him. I was like, hey, like I was captain of the wrestling team. I was like, you need to come over and wrestle. So then he started wrestling. He picked it up very fast, and he kind of just did it for fun at first. He didn't really know what he wanted to be, but he was a big wrestling fan, and I always kind of like had an influence in like, you should be a wrestler. Like, why don't we do it together? And so then also theater, we both just loved performing and just being goofy. So we did theater together.
Have you ever been in a production of Peter Pan, and did you play a lost boy?
No, that would have been crazy.
Because Junie said he played Peter Pan before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Judy's played a lot of different characters. That's awesome. No, never Peter Pan. But that would have been something. That would have been a story. Uh, but we kind of did it during COVID. So I was like a junior and a senior in high school during COVID. So
That's
our
a that's
junior
a
year,
crazy thing to even think about right there. Like that's an era of like that's I don't know that's probably never gonna happen again. Like they're like those 2 years of
yeah.
school under a pandemic were so wildly different for people. Like your graduations were done on a Zoom call, right?
No, so mine weren't, thankfully, but the class
Yeah.
before me, mine was done in person. However, it was done split up. Our entire class was split into three different graduations, so like we had minimal people
Wow.
there, and we could only invite
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 family members, which was kind of lame, but it's okay, you know. It's better than a Zoom call or a drive-by honk, congrats, you know.
Yeah,
But
that's wild.
the class before us did have to endure that, yeah. So
Did you
junior
ever
year,
see
I
the
remember we were.
sorry to derail quick, but did you ever see
No, you're good.
the Zoom call graduations where like they get Zoom call bombed and people just go in there and like troll the Zoom like the graduate like there's a whole thing about the internet. It's like it's hilarious, but it's also like, yo, this is like this kid's big day, and then someone comes in there
Right, yeah.
and they're just like saying the most offensive things. Like they're in the
Yes.
chat like roasting the principal and saying the worst stuff ever. Like it's like
Right.
wow.
Just trolling, just absolutely
Yeah, yeah.
trolling. And I honestly, it's like when it happens, it might be like, oh man, it's ruining my time. But like looking back on it, it's like my graduation was done, you know, via a phone call, a video call, and people were trolling my principal, roasting my principal in the comments. Like that's kind of fun to say. Like that's
Yeah,
me,
so I would
you
have
know.
loved
So
it.
right. We did Hunchback in the Hunchback of Notre Dame in junior year, and 2 weeks before it was like we are about to start Tech Week, and that's when everything shut down. So
Man.
we had the entire season, we were preparing for it. I played Phoebus de Martin, the soldier love interest to Esmeralda, the gypsy main character, and Miles played another soldier. So we were kind of like soldier partners. And then we had a sword battle. We had a sword fight. So that's another cool. I'll talk about that in a second. That's really cool. We got like professionally trained in sword fighting. But the year before that, we did Godspell, and Godspell is a very open-ended, kind of creative. Like it's like a loose story of like Jesus, but it's kind of like you interpret it how you want, and it's kind of like
Mhm.
ours was a whole bunch of kids on a playground. There's like a movie, it's like hippies in the 70s and stuff. Like you can just interpret it however you want, and it's very like the scenes are very open-ended. You can kind of construct them however you want to.
Like
And
Romeo
our
and Juliet, where
director,
you could take the idea of it and flip it any way you want.
right, right,
Yeah.
and our director was a big wrestling fan. Uh, so he knew Chris and I were wrestling fans. We kind of bonded over that. And then Miles and I would always wrestle in high school. We'd always like wrestle in class and stuff. We wrestle, throw each other into the lockers. I remember one time we were in track practice, and it was an indoor track because it was raining outside, and we were wrestling around. We were showing everybody like our moves at the back of the line for warm ups, and then boom, I tell him, I kind of call to him on the fly. I say, throw me into the lockers. He's like, what? I'm like, throw me in the locker. So he tosses me, bam, I sell it. I get on the floor. Everyone's like, oh. And our coach, our track coach, who's like a very respected, like he's very successful, like very stern kind of like guy. He goes from the front, who the is banging on the locker back there? He starts yelling, and everyone like kind of like parts ways, and it's just like me on the floor getting up, and Miles
Still
just sitting
selling.
there. So, we would just always wrestle, and
Does your
in fact,
yearbook say like most likely to become tag team champions and is used to?
I wish that would be cool. No, I was most likely to change the world, but I interpret that most likely to change the professional wrestling world. You know, get
I love
that
that. I
going.
love that.
But in our acting class too, it was a creative project. We had to do a little skit on how we interpreted our creativity, like kind of how we were creative, like what we were passionate about, and how we interpreted acting and in you know being creative. Basically, it was
Yeah, yeah.
very like do what you want, kind of show your creativity. And so Miles and I showed our creativity through wrestling, and we had like a wrestling match for the acting class, like in the theater. It was really cool. But anyways, we showed all this stuff to our director, and he was like, "Yo, like, we need to incorporate this into the musical Godspell." So I was Lazarus, and Lazarus dies, and so we were like, "How do we kill off Lazarus?" And I was like, "Well, I have a replica WWE Championship belt, and Miles can pull off The Rock. Um, so why don't we have The Rock come in, have a match with Lazarus, and he kills Lazarus?" And that's what we did. So the the set was a playground. So I'm Lazarus, whatever, and then all of a sudden in the middle of the production, if you smell, like the lights go up, and Miles comes up at the top of the slide with the WWE Championship and the like Team Bring It shirt, and he slides down the slide, and he says like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm Latin." And he says, "It doesn't matter who you are," and he's like, "Ring the bell," and everyone surrounds us with jump ropes as like to make the ropes. And I'm like, as Lazarus, I'm like, "Wait, what's going on? Wait, hold on, I don't want to fight." And we had like a match. Like it was so cool. Like I stunnered him. People's elbowed me, and that's how he beat me. And Lazarus passed away. We were like, everyone around was like, "Oh, Lazarus, get up, Lazarus." Oh gosh, I think he's dead. Like,
yeah.
Rock just killed
So,
Lazarus. But it was awesome.
So how if you and Miles are so like your whole lives been so close, and then you enter the pro wrestling scene, and then he kind of teams up with Ryan, and you team up with Junie. How does that decision come if you guys were so tight and so close?
Right. So it really was because when we started out at the Wrestle Factory, we were in. So there's these different tiers. There's 101, which is once a week. It's learning the basic bumps and holds, like wrist locks and whatnot. And then there's 201. You learn how to run the ropes and how to enter and exit the ring safely. And then there's 301. You learn like the basic suplexes and whatnot. And those are like tiered curriculums. They're 7 weeks. Once a week, you learn the basics. And then there's the core curriculum, which is like the multiple times a week. You kind of learn everything, right?
Yeah.
And it's much cheaper. And we started in high school. We started in as seniors in high school. So we were both 17 at the time. And we could only do the tiered curriculum because we were in school. We could only do like once a week on Sundays. So we both started the tiered curriculum at the same time. However, right after, I think we both did 101, and then we both did 201, I believe. Right after 201, I joined core because like school started winding down. And so I joined core, and I was wrestling a lot with Junie and with Ryan, training a lot with them. And Miles still did the tier curriculums. He did the 301, then the 401 eventually. And it took him a while to join core. He didn't join core until much later. So after months and months and months of go by of training, Junie and I kind of like are like, like we have a lot of chemistry in the ring. Like, let's be a tag team. And this is all before like it became a big group. But we kind of decided we wanted to be a tag team. And Miles and I like had talked about being a tag team like previously, and it's still a possibility. We team up here and there. We made our LVAC debuts actually, like Lehigh Valley Athletic Council. We made our LVAC debut as a tag team, Miles and I, and then Junie made his debut as a singles competitor, and then we all just had a crazy big experience, crazy fun show called Steel Stack SmackDown, and we opened the show, and that was the first ever time the Lost Boys got to wrestle 4-on-4. Against the Cyberhawks and Montekia. So that was a awesome experience.
Holy shit. Right. There's a team I didn't know I wanted until you just said it. The Cyberhawks and Mantequilla.
Yep. Perfect fit, right? It was incredible. It was
I actually just talked to Mantequilla over the weekend, and future guests, we'll say. Future guests. I think the Cyberhawks on here too.
He's awesome.
But I think he just hurt his knee. He's going through a little bit of a knee thing right now.
Yeah. He pretty bad knee injury. He'll be out for a good couple months, but that was his last match actually. So like he had gotten injured prior to that, but he didn't really do much in the match. He was like, I'll kind of pose around, but I won't do much. And now he's taking time off to rehab.
He's so good.
Best, but he's good. Awesome. Yeah, the Cyberhawks are awesome. So that was a really fun match.
Actually, it was really cool to peel back the curtain a little bit. Like I was at the show, and I used to work for this promotion, and I mean I'll probably still go back and help out here and there, and I even did that night. Like I kind of just did like small things here and there, but PPW, and he was like a locker room leader, man. Like he was back there like helping with promos, and like people would come back, and he was in the gorilla position watching the whole night, and he can't participate, but he was like taking on a role of like a backstage agent, and it was really, really cool to see him in that light. And like he kind of pulled some of the younger people away, and he's like, "Yo, well, why in this match? Did this make sense? Like, does it make sense to do this or this?" And they're like, you're right. Like it was cool to see him in that light. I love seeing that backstage stuff. Like it's my favorite.
Right. He's done that plenty of times to us, and
Yeah.
in like the most brilliant ways, to where he's given us so many like awesome little gold nuggets of tips and information and just tricks of the craft. So he's really smart. I like him a lot. And then the Cyberhawks are really smart character wise. Like they have it. Like they know what they're doing, and it was really fun experience. And then sorry to backtrack. I know we're kind of all over the place. I just like to talk about wrestling.
I love it.
To go back to the theater, so we did The Rock versus Lazarus. Then the next year, our theater director, we did Hunchback, and he was like, "I want you guys both to be soldiers, so you guys can have a sword fight because I trust you guys, like stage combat." So they brought in a professional sword handler and stage fight, choreographer, and she taught us how to properly handle, hold, spar, kind of like fencing in a way.
Like fencing, yeah.
Right, and it was just like we were taught professionally for this musical, and we we incorporated wrestling into it. Like there's like a back elbow, and I was but it was just really cool. So back-to-back years in theater, we got to perform stage combat with each other, and so that was our precursor to wrestling, to pro wrestling, and it was just those times were really hard because in terms of balancing them. Miles and I were both on the wrestling team, then we were both in theater. So it was both sides. For those that don't know, like wrestling, amateur wrestling season is from November all the way until March.
Yeah.
And then for the spring musical, it's December all the way till April. It's the exact same season. After school, you're at one or the other. Except Miles and I were like, no, we're going to be at both. So we would go after school. We'd do an hour and a half at rehearsal, and then out of a 3-hour rehearsal, we'd do an hour and a half, then say, thank you, everyone. Peace out. We'd go straight to the wrestling room and join for the second half of the wrestling practice, which was also 3 hours. So we'd do 90 minutes each. And both the wrestling coach and the theater director, supported it. They didn't like it. They're both like, I think it'd be better if you just did one, put all your effort into one. And they may have been right, but at the end of the day, we weren't doing it for we were doing it for wrestling. That's how.
Yeah, they were fundamental blocks for you, not future blocks.
Right. We were doing it for pro wrestling. We needed both. As a fundamental block. Right.
One of my favorite things now, I think, of pre-recording these episodes and not doing them live, so people can't hear episodes before them. So an episode that you guys have already heard, but you have not, is Travis Huckabee, right? So far twice now in episodes and interviews talking to people of how they got through their training and stuff like that. Travis said, I knew I was going to do the wrestling school and I trained my ass off to be prepared. So when I got there, I was ready. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, I want to go do this and I'm a fan. And then they show up and they're like, oh, I realized I was out of shape. Oh, I realized I was in over my head. You are kind of in that same vein as Travis, where you were like, no, here's the building blocks I need to go. And here's how I need to get my cardio up and my endurance up. And historically, Travis went in and won a free scholarship on essentially coming in prepared. And it's funny to hear all of your drive and your mental aspect and how you prepared yourself, because one of the things Travis said in that podcast, or it was either off camera because we talked for a while after, is he really attached himself to you. He really spoke highly of you, of your work ethic and stuff. And it's funny to hear that now. Both of your stories are so insanely similar of how you both knew you were going to go to that exact same location and come in prepared and not kind of dick around. You kind of came in this is what I want, and here's all the steps I did to be prepared for it. So to kind of get that nod of approval from a Huckabee, and then now hearing your story, it makes sense. That's why awesome. he spoke so highly of you.
That's really cool. Travis is another one. He was a trainer at the Wrestle Factory. Unfortunately, his last days as a trainer were kind of my first days in course. So I had one class with him as a trainer. Yeah. But as someone who I've kind of shared a locker room with and have had matches with and has trained with at the dojo and whatnot, he's super smart and he takes it so seriously. Not too seriously to where it's not fun, but he takes it so seriously in that he thinks so differently and he thinks so professionally, and in the ring he just takes care so much care of you. He's a true professional. I love Travis. That's cool.
Yeah.
Travis is, yeah, he's someone
He
who's
was
always
definitely someone I
prepared.
wanted to be on the podcast. So I feel like not enough people interview or talk to him, and he's such a good mind. That's why I was like, I need to have
Yes.
him on. But yeah, he was spoke very highly of you. So with all that prepared, like being prepared and having the mind for wrestling and having all those building blocks, and then you go to your first week of wrestling, did it pay off, or were you still like, oh my God, this hurts like hell?
Yeah. No, I don't want to bury how difficult it is and how much it does hurt, because it does, and it is like very difficult. But I was ready. Like I it didn't hurt me. So Miles and I, another thing is I did Krav. It's Israeli self defense. It's like it's an MMA, Krav Maga.
Yep.
When I was younger, like very early, and one of the first things you learn is a fall break, and it's basically taking a bump. It's how to fall safely if you get knocked down or whatever. You hit your hands on the ground, you kind of disperse your impact, you tuck your head so you don't crack your head, and you put your legs up to disperse everything. So it's like almost exactly like a pro wrestling bump. So like I kind of picked that up, and just all of my life, whether it's in the living room of my house or out back or at the turf, like Miles and I, when we're outside on the turf field for gym class, if we have a second and the teachers aren't looking, him and I would legit practice bumps before we even started wrestling training,
That's
like
awesome.
safely, so so when we went in, like the bumps didn't really hurt. And also just wrestling, like amateur wrestling, you get slammed all the time in amateur. If you do amateur wrestling, I feel like is if you can only do one thing before wrestling training, you should wrestle amateurly, because it's so physical, it's so mentally tough. The conditioning is crazy. Like it prepares you so well. So when I came in, like the conditioning for wrestling was a breeze. Like mentally, it was a breeze. Like the physical aspect was a breeze because I had just done sports, like physical sports, and I learned how to fall safely. So for me, like I truly came in prepared, and it was something that I was also just so like energetic and so young. Like I knew this is what I wanted to do, so I was also just like, this is awesome. Like I could do any type of bump. It was just so cool, but it does definitely hurt. Like it
Yeah.
after a while, you start feeling it, like oh, my body's cracking in ways it never has before. I wake up, my neck is more sore than it ever has been before, and I didn't even fall in it. It's just from tucking it so hard all the time.
Yeah.
So it definitely is physically challenging.
It's funny because I've gotten debates before with other content creators and talk wrestling with people, and the biggest thing right now is you hear a lot of people on the internet wrestling community who don't really follow the independent wrestling scene, but they see a Billy Starks or a Nick Wayne on TV and they go, they're 18. Like, how much did they really do in this business to get where they are and do what they're doing? And hearing stories like yours and knowing stories like Griffin McCoy's and Jordan Oliver's and Nick Wayne's and the Billy Starks of the world, your generation gets a lot of crap for saying, oh, they're soft, or they're this, or they're that, or they're not motivated, or they don't want to work. Your generation is watching the world in a different lens, and you guys are seeing the world differently than the older generations, and you guys are motivated to be like, this is what I want, and I'm going to try it until I fail, and then I'll give the real world a shot, or I will have the real world as my backup plan, but I'm going to chase my dream. And I think that's where your younger generation sets itself apart, because like most people at the older generations of this business all didn't know how to get into it. And if it was like a secret society and you had to know somebody or get involved with the right people to get involved. So the industry is so different now. And some places are letting people in at 14, 15. They can't do everything, but they can at least learn things from there. So knowing that you were preparing yourself, or some people do the backyard scene and have people train them, is by the time you guys hit 18, 19, you have logged more hours into this business than some veterans did 10 years in. You know what I mean? Like, and when I say that, like driving to a show, doing an 8-minute match, leaving, and then waiting for the next month because you only work one promotion, but you do that for 10 years. Sure, you're a 10-year vet, but you probably only have 10, 15 hours ring time because you're only getting 8 to 10 minute matches once a month for 12 years, where you guys are doing this daily and training. And some people get their training done and then never go back to training again. That was an old school mentality. Oh, I got my certificate. Why should I keep training? Now I'm going to go do my booking aspect. And then they kind of get lazy. And I'm not trying to be mean about it, but they do. But this newer
No, I
generation's
agree.
like, no, Yeah, like and there's some people, the old generation, who are still busting their ass and going to seminars and doing all that stuff. But it's just like this younger generation of talent coming up into this industry are being like the stories is you're being pushed too quickly. But it's like, no, like you guys are out there killing it and you're learning it and you're picking the brains of the veterans and you're doing it the right way and nothing's being handed that's not being deserved or earned.
Yeah, I appreciate all that. And people like Billy Starks and Nick Wayne, they were actually like training professionally, as young kids. So
Yeah.
they know that like I would prepare for it as much as I could and kind of like finagled my way in when I was 17, even though most places you can't start until you're 18.
Yeah.
But like if I could have started earlier, I would have definitely. So I did as much outside of it as I could to prepare. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. I appreciate that. And the
Yeah.
thing about always going to training after you start getting bookings is like so important. I understand the aspect of if you're starting to get a lot of bookings, like it can be very hard on the body to train multiple days a week and then also travel and wrestle like bookings multiple days a week. But if you can, and like if you're booked less than 3 times a weekend, like you should try to train at least once a week, if not multiple. Like if you can, you should definitely try. You shouldn't just think like, oh, well, I'm getting booked now, so I don't have to. Like, no, unless you're physically unable to, you should definitely try to continue going to training every single week to
Or just show up
always
and be
improve.
there.
You know,
Because even if you're beat up
right?
and you're
You
like,
can
hey,
always
I'm gonna,
still learn. Yeah,
yeah, maybe I'm not gonna get in the ring and bump today, kind of let my body rest. But just being there and just being in the atmosphere, you're gonna learn something.
right.
I don't
No,
even train. I
you
don't
are.
bump. I don't do any of that. But I sit and watch people set up their matches, and I watch people go over things, and I just kind of just sit and like a fly in the wall and watch two people put their match together. And as a commentator, I learn things, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what they're trying to go here for. Like, oh, that's why they do this to set up for this, and then me on commentary can build off that. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of good to just be in an environment because you're gonna learn from it. But so you know you're now you're trained, everything's going on, you're taking your bookings, you're doing your matches. What are some matches for you that really stand out that you feel like things started clicking for you, or you had a match where you're like, oh, that just made sense and you felt like it flowed very well and everything just kind of went, like it had that aha moment for you?
Yes. So there have been a few. Um, I would say one was the very beginning of this year. I believe it was in February. There was Junie and I were still fresh. I mean, we still are still fresh, but at that point we were like 10, 20 matches in February.
If
So
you
we had
ask Big
wrestled in
Dan, Junie
Vermont.
still only has like 6 matches.
Yeah, really.
He always busts them. Yeah.
Big Dan's awesome. Yeah, yeah. That's something because Junie does like to I worked so hard. I have so many matches. So when Big Dan hears, it's like no, you have 5 matches. Shut up. but it's so we were in February.
Bro, real
We were
quick,
like
I
super
interviewed
duper
Big
fresh.
Dan. All right, I interviewed Junie, and then I interviewed Big Dan, and then I said that I had Junie on. He goes, "You put Junie on your podcast? The kid has 6 matches. How is he even
Yeah,
on
what a
your pod?"
greenhorn. just a troll.
Yeah,
I love Big Dan.
yeah, he's
He's
great.
awesome. So in February, we wrestled for this promotion called ETWA in Vermont. And that's actually one of our, that's where we got in pretty much first. And that was like the first, not home promotion, but the first place we kind of really found our footing and
Mm-hmm.
got so many reps as a tag team. And we're actually wrestling there later this month in October 28th. We're wrestling in Canada, in Stansted, Quebec, Canada, for the
Is that your first
ETWA tag
international
titles.
booking?
So no, it'll be our second. It'll be we wrestled in Canada once before in April, and that's another one of those matches that I was going to say we kind of felt like we turned a different tide. So the February match was a 4-way. It was Junie and I versus the Rat Bastards, who are awesome, versus the Cold Hard Guapos, Diego Alvarez and Johnny Pierce. They're the current ETWA tag champions. They're the ones we're feuding with right now, and the Colony, who were at the time the ETWA tag team champions. So the Ants, Ultimo Ant and Electro Ant, and
Okay.
so it was a 4-way elimination. And so at this point, Junie and I, we had made our debut for the tag titles against the Ants, and we had lost to them. And it kind of had made our characters go crazy in the sense like Like, oh my gosh, they're ants. They dress up like ants. All the kids love them, but
What do you mean
but they
dress
don't even
up?
care. They dress up as ants, and they're not real ants. And like all these kids love the ants, but they're fakes. And like we were just so bitter that the ants beat us. Oh, we couldn't. So that was like our story.
I have a little show and tell for you, quick. Go ahead, you keep telling
Very
your
nice.
story.
So it was like a story that we were building, and then we had faced the Rat Bastards. We had beaten them. We went the Ants, and then the Cold Hard Guapos had just become a tag team. So then it was this big 4-way, and the first team eliminated was the Colony, and we got the pin, and it was like such a satisfying, like, yes, we finally beat the Ants. But then once we beat the Ants, they were out. We still had 2 other teams to overcome for the tag titles, and it was kind of like a perspective change. It's like wow, we were so focused on beating that team, but like they were just one step in the process of becoming champions. And to this day, we still have yet to become champions for, ETWA. So we're grinding, we're trying our hardest. But that match was just story-wise where Junie and I, like, it was our first 20+ minute match. And there's so many stories. So we went in as bad guys. We went in as ant haters and bad guys. But then throughout the match, because Johnny Pierce is like 6'5", 300 pounds, like he's a big guy. Throughout the match, it was like, this big bad guy just beating us down, and we had to learn how to be resilient. So kind of like throughout the match, we started as ant haters, beat them, but then once they were eliminated, we were the underdogs. So like we kind of fought from underneath and had to persevere. But at the end of the day, we were choked out and beat down, and we lost. And it was humbling for us. So like it was kind of like a little bit of a double turn. So that storytelling process within that match, like the eliminations and just the nuances and whatnot, like that was like where we were like, yo, we're telling, like, we've always wanted to tell stories, but like that was the first time we were like we are so proud of like the story we just told. And then a couple months later, it was our first international booking in April, and we faced the Cold Hard Guapos for the tag titles, and that was in Canada. And when we walked through the crowd, it was at an elementary school, and it was just one of the biggest crowds we had wrestled in front of to that point. And it was just electric. Like that atmosphere is still one of like my favorite atmosphere so far in my first year of wrestling in Canada, in front of all, like, so many kids. Like it was just so cool. They loved us. And like, so that was another time where we kind of like we felt like we turned a different leaf in terms of crowd engagement. Like there was like 5 minutes before we even locked up, and like the crowd was just such on our side, and we were just mulling it all in and just like soaking in it. And then after the match, like even though we had lost, like all the kids wanted, there was a line of kids, they all wanted to take pictures of us, and it was just such a beautiful thing. And
your representation,
that's why I do it.
You look young, and you look like
Right.
like the Lost Boys look like a bunch of 19-year-olds who give younger people in the audience like that could be me one day. Like you're a representation of the yeah, absolutely. So I found this at a convention, and this is one of my favorite things I think I own. But here's an old 8x10.
Oh, that is so cool.
That's the OG Colony.
That is so cool. The OG Colony are goats,
if you know, we'll just say, yeah.
The OG Colony, yeah. I mean, and just picking all of their brains, and just the Colony, and then the new Colony too is just that. What a great great evolution, the history of a great faction, yeah. So
the story. If you want to learn storytelling, that's a team you pick their brain, and character development and character
development. Absolutely. I mean, considering the characters they've gone through.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely.
Yeah. So besides professional wrestling, actually one more professional wrestling question, and then we'll jump in. But like, so yeah. you travel a lot, you work with a lot of people. Besides the Lost Boys and some of the names we said, who are some people out in the scene that you have worked with or you've seen that more people should be aware of?
Leo Sparrow.
Love Leo.
Leo Sparrow is he's awesome. He gets it in terms of character wise, and then also professionally. Like I want to take so many professional tendencies that he does and kind of apply it to myself and to the Lost Boys.
There's two things that he does that I think everyone should be picking his brain on how to doing. So I booked him for the podcast early on. When you book him or you're doing anything with you, he sends you a Google Drive link.
Yep.
And that Google Drive link has his music, has his 8x10s, has any clip art you may need to put him in graphics. It has his entire bio. It has all of his social, like that one Google Drive link that
Everything
he
about
sends
his
you.
character, right? It's
Everything is
him.
there.
It's
Yeah.
his entire brand.
Yep.
So you
And
have easy
then
access to it. And then commentary
when
cards.
you're on
Yeah,
commentary, he
it's
walks up
awesome.
and hands you a commentary card and is like, here's all my notes, here's all my monikers, here's what gets my
Right.
character over. And being on commentary, I was like, this is amazing. I remember I took a picture of it and I was like, this is the coolest thing. I had him sign it after the show. I was like, that's awesome. But it was like the Leo Sparrow commentary card. I remember taking a picture of him being like, yo, this kid is the GOAT, like as a professional. And I remember the Acclaimed both
Absolutely.
retweeted it. And I was like, tag team champs, baby. And
Yeah.
But no, the kid is just, yeah, he's super talented. A lot of people can learn a lot from him. And he's, like I said, he's
Right.
still super new to his careers also.
He is, yeah. But he's such a hard worker, and again, he just has such a mind for the. He went to college for business, and
Yep.
so he's just so like oriented, and that's something. The commentary cards, the drive, like the link, having all of your brand kind of so set and having it all in one place for easy access like that. I admire that. So that's something that I look up to and want to try to emulate and replicate. So Leo Sparrow, very talented. A shout out to Harleen and Journey, people that we've trained with. And
hopefully
so
by the
many.
time this airs,
Montekia,
we'll have a few of them recorded. But I'm doing like the movie reviews and like pop culture stuff that I'm going to start recording once I get all these interviews done. But me and Harleen are going to possibly do a series, and if it doesn't come to fruition, then someone remind me when this airs of why didn't this happen. But she likes the Saw franchise, so we're going to go through and rewatch all the Saw movies and then have like a review of different, like every Saw movie.
That's cool. That's
and
really
hopefully
cool.
by that time, because the new one just came out, and we're hoping by the time we get through the old Saw movies, the new one hits streaming, and then when it's hot for streaming, we can go and do the new one. Because she's super into horror movie, and she's like, it gives me a break from watching, because all I consume is wrestling, so I have nothing else. So it would kind of give me a break a little bit, and I'm like, that'd be a lot of fun. I'm hoping to do that more with more talent, where like I have like whatever you're passionate about, we come on and we do an episode of a movie or a TV show you really liked or something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anybody else?
There's a lot. I mean, the Northeast is crawling. I would just say
jam-packed.
Look up places like CZW. Look up places like the Slime Balls. They're incredible.
Very good.
Look up places like CZW. Look up places like Wrestle Pro. Everyone coming out of the Worldwide Dojo, like Sturdy Sal and the Cyberhawks again. Thunderhawk is the newest one. He's incredible. We've trained with him. So yeah, look out for those types of people.
Yeah. So besides professional wrestling, last question here. What else are you into? What are the things that you're passionate about? If you're taking a break and you're not watching wrestling or consuming wrestling, what is your release?
It's mainly sports. Like I love sports. I'm very passionate about sports: football, basketball, baseball, and somewhat hockey, but definitely football, baseball, and basketball. While we're recording this, the Phillies are in the playoffs, so hopefully when this airs, we can say yes, the Philadelphia Phillies were the 2023 World Series champions. Hopefully, but so sports. And
all Philly sports? Are you like a diehard all Philly sports guy? Or
yeah, 100%. I mean, I bleed green, red, blue, and orange for sure. But I respect like I'm not just like I don't just watch Philly sports. That's the thing. I love sports in general. I root for Philly sports, but I watch all sports because I just appreciate the craft. I appreciate the storytelling, and we talked about this briefly before coming on. The storytelling within sports. Like the story of the game or the story of the season, or for example, this Philadelphia Phillies team reminds me so much of Cody Rhodes, and his story for WrestleMania 39. He came in, the Astros are like the big bad MLB team, and
cheaters,
like the big heel, right? Exactly. They're the cheaters. They're the big heel team, and like the Philadelphia Phillies are like this like underdog. Like they're coming up. They're finding their way. Like they signed the superstar Bryce Harper. They got all these pieces together, and like they're ready, and they have the most magical postseason run, like how like Cody's was like the torn pec and the beating Rollins, and then goes through all these trials and tribulations.
Did Philly already lose at Mania though, and get through this nonsense of the tag team champions? Because that's all bad.
The tag champions. But the World Series, the World Series last year, it was the Phillies and the Astros, and the Phillies lost. was the most heartbreaking thing. That was like a magical. I thought we were destined to win last year. It was the most magical postseason run ever. And then this year, we're back. We're having the postseason run again. The magic is going again. And maybe we'll face the Astros in the World Series again because they're in the championship series. It'll be them or the Texas Rangers. So hopefully we come back to this. The Phillies will finish the story. Hopefully they will finich the story. So it's like
it's that
the
stadium
parallels
is
are
just
insane.
so much fun. Like I don't watch baseball. Baseball bores the life out of me. But if it's a Phillies home game, I'm watching it because the fans are
electric.
crazy. They're
Rowdy,
crazy.
yeah.
That's
It's
why they're
one
the
of
best
atmospheres.
wrestling. Like they're the best sports and they're the best wrestling fans. Like
Right.
people say, well, what's
Yep.
the mecca of pro wrestling? I'm like, it's Philly. I don't care what you tell me. Like it's
Yeah.
Philly. Philly
Much
almost put
appreciated.
ECW on a major platform because they were just passionate about ECW. Like if the city of Philadelphia gets behind you, you're in. You're golden.
Right. Exactly. It's
And even if you're
catapulted so
not
many
that good,
careers, too.
come tell Philly they're not because then you'll get dealt with. You know what I mean? Like
Right. And you'll get booed. You'll get heat.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But also, in addition to sports, also like superheroes and Marvel, DC, and then also cinema, like watching like movies and kind of screenplay. So it's kind of all superheroes and movies plus sports,
everything I'm into.
pro wrestling. Yeah,
Yep.
it's pro wrestling. That's what it is.
What's one of your favorite movies? Like if you've watched 100 times.
I'm
writing this down.
So I have like a little bit of like of a top three that kind of on any given day could be any of these. But Stand By Me was growing up. That was one of like my favorite movies. Stand By Me. That's just that's the ultimately.
Oh, that's My Girl.
Story of,
that's not Stand By Me, is it?
Yeah. No, I think it is My Girl. It's glasses.
Yeah.
Because the
Stand By Me is the train track. Like, let's go see a dead body.
Yes,
right?
Yes, The Body. Yes, it's Stephen King's The Body. So that's the ultimate story of like camaraderie and adventure and just four young kids finding their way on a train track. Like it's kind of like it's a coming of age.
I see what you're doing here.
And it's like the Lost Boys. So like, Stand By Me. It really is. I mean, maybe one day we'll have to find a dead body and we'll be in a movie. I don't know, but
that would be a great like. So like. Here's where I think the Lost Boys should take it to the next level, right? So like there's a team right now on the scene that I absolutely love and they're super entertaining, not even when they're wrestling, but they do like the travel vlogs. Like they do the vlogging and they get just a camera and they just have fun with it. And that's Primal Fear, right? So when I see like Primal Fear and they're always traveling together, they're always doing stuff, they're always like on the road, they're always like I need that from the Lost Boys. Like I feel like you guys are super creative and you can do fun things, but like, hey, we're on our road to the thing and like just a video you guys walking down the train tracks or running like you're being, you know what I mean? Like I just feel like if you guys to kill time in between things, I feel like that would be a fun project for you guys to take on of just like vlogging. Like even if you do a thing where like you're not together, like you record like a 15-minute segment, he records it, and then you just kind of blend it all together and put it out as like the episode of the Lost Boys episode 1. And just like kind of learning about you people, learning about you guys separately, but also like when you're together, the moments that you guys have as well.
Absolutely. And
make it happen and credit ABJ.
That's something we've talked about for a while now, and something that we want to get going. Hopefully that happens soon. Hopefully by the time
I would watch
airs,
it. I would subscribe and I would check it out all the time. I think it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think like that's a great way, A, to tell stories, B, to put forth our characters. Like
and your brand
may not know us, in our brand, right? And just also tell stories like in between matches and kind of like that could be to promotions, that could be very attractive and very,
absolutely.
Oh, they have a built-in story already through the skits that they're doing separately. So I agree. That's something that hopefully we can get going. We're all kind of busy, really busy in our own ways. Ryan's, law student, and then Miles and I are both in undergrad at our respective colleges. And Junie's
imagine Ryan just
hard.
recording his vlog in class, and he just has the tie around his head and just like.
Right. Yeah. Well-educated degenerate. That's something. So right, and it ties into Stand By Me. And there's like, I think the first quote of that movie is like there's nothing better than the friends you had when you were 12, and like it's a coming of age movie, brilliant movie. And then Guardians of the Galaxy, that's my favorite superhero movie. I think that was so well directed. It kind of took all these characters that no one knew anything about and told like each one of their stories so well, and kind of combined them all into one masterpiece of a movie. And that's also another group story. And then, yeah, The Wolf of Wall Street. The Wolf of Wall Street is just hilarious. I love Leonardo DiCaprio. That's one of my favorite movies.
Trotsky was in that movie.
Yes. I've heard it. He's talked to me about that. Actually.
He was a stunt double for Jonah Hill in that movie.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite.
So funny.
That's one of my. That's what hands that like. I love the Scarfaces and the Goodfellas and the casino movies. Like they're my favorite. I love those gangster movies. Wolf on Wall Street has easily skyrocketed into my top 3 of all time. It's such a good movie. Like I watch it all. Well. I watch it all the time. I watch like I'll be sitting there like, oh, it's on Netflix. I'm like, I'm just hitting play. Like the Quaalude scene. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Right. It's just comedy. It's just pure comedy.
Yeah.
Pure comedy. It's very, very inappropriate, but it's very funny.
It's a great story, though. Once again, it's based on true events. It's a great story. Yeah. Good stuff.
So those are probably my top 3. I'd say Stand By Me, Guardians of the Galaxy, Wolf of Wall Street. But if you ask me another day, it might be something else. I might say No Country for Old Men just because Javier Bardem as Anton Chigurh. If you've never seen that, you need to see it because it is incredible. It's the famous coin flip scene in the gas station where he tells him to pick a side of the coin. And he's just like a psychopath. And the gas station attendant's like so scared. And it's the most intense scene you'll have ever seen. It's like a mastercraft in pacing and acting and delivery in terms of he made my heart beat so much watching that for the first time just by telling this guy, pick a side of the coin. Like the guy's like, well, what's going to happen? He's like, if you win, you win. If you lose, you just pick a side of the coin. Like, you know, like it just, so watch that movie. You haven't, but
you know what? That's a great scene, but there's 2 other movies that have a scene like that for me as well. Inglourious Bastards, the floorboard scene where he's like where he knows everything that before it even happens. Like that scene is a great scene where you're having an anxiety attack watching it. The Gangs of New York, how he plays that villain in that movie. That's another one you're like, oh my god. And
that's then I have to see. That's on my watch list. Gangs of New York.
Oh, it's so good. I think it's Daniel Day-Lewis as the main bad guy in that.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, he's such a good actor. He's so good.
Oh, one of the best. Yeah.
Yeah. So much fun. But, all right. So where can people find you on social media? Where can they support you? Where can they get some Lost Boys merch or some Athan Promise merch?
All right. So social media, it is Instagram. It's at Athan_wrestles. Very simple. I'm Athan and I wrestle. So it's Athan Wrestles. And then on Twitter, it is just Athan Promise. And as for merch, you can find us on Brainbusters. If you search in Athan Promise, you can get Athan Promise gear. If you search in the Lost Boys, you can get Lost Boys logo gear. Or if you come to any of our shows, we have a fresh batch of awesome Lost Boys shirts that were just printed by LVAC, and they're the best shirts in the game. So if you come see us at an actual show, you get a great quality shirt as well. And yeah, you can find all the other Lost Boys on Instagram as well, at Junie FS Pro, at Miles Penn Pro. And you actually can't find Ryan on Instagram, but we need to get him on Instagram. So once that happens,
you know what we should do? Let's just make a fake one. He'll never know.
Right. Maybe I should just post on
we'll just like
Ryan.
Yeah, just make an account and give all the login information to the rest of the Lost Boys and have them run Ryan's account.
Right. Get him into some heat that he never knows about.
yeah. And then make the account not really Ryan.
Right. Just a fan account or something. But it's right.
That'd be so funny. And then if he ever takes it over, he could be like, now it's really Ryan.
Right. Now he would have a blast on that platform. He's so smart, so funny. So if you haven't seen any of his stuff, look up on YouTube Captured Lightning, and you can see the story of the Lost Boys. It's a 3-match trilogy of pretty much a prequel of how we kind of came to be as our current iteration, how Miles joined the group, and how we kind of developed our identity. So if you have YouTube, which I know you do, go look up Captured Lightning and watch Miles versus Athan and Miles versus Ryan and Junie, and then the Fatal 4-Way.
Love it. Thank you so much for this. I appreciate you so much, man. I love you to death. We were talking beforehand, and I said I want to get with like 5 or 6 different people, and every 6 to 8 months, I want to have a certain group back on because they're still young to their careers, and I would love to chronicle their journey as we go. So if there's anyone out there that you've been listening to that you're like, yo, I want a second episode of, please let me know in the comments. But I'm gonna tell you right now, Athan, Junie, Ricky Price, Precious, Harleen, Journey are all on that list of coming back on in the future to keep doing updates with and learning about them, and just kind of, we got the origin story done, and now we come back in, we could talk like wrestling, and then like, did you see that new movie? You know what I mean? Like, it's gonna be a lot of fun. So there's like, I can't wait. Like, it makes me excited to make the content, just to have these conversations, and it's friendship building, and it's all that really fun stuff. And I look forward to it. But make sure you check all the links below. Support.
And one more thing I want to say.
Oh, go ahead.
Just about you, ABJ. I know you've been going through some tough things, brother. I love you. You are doing great work. Everyone should be following you. Everyone should watch your work as a commentator, as an interviewer, as a podcaster. Just, you're such a professional, and you're a blast to talk with. So I appreciate you. You're doing great work, full steam ahead. And I am so excited for big things to come for you, right?
Thank you so much. With that, we'll end it there. Here's some music by the Converse Kid. We'll see you on episode 106.